in Reading, Pennsylvania. And I welcome you to this evening's performance. Now, we're going to get to the performance in a moment. I'm your host for this evening, and I want to talk about just a couple of things as we start off these 8 days of performances. Under normal conditions, backstage right now, there'd be a group of about 20 to 40 students who would be actors and performers and crew people, all, with their adrenaline going, hoping and waiting for that magical moment when curtain up and we start a show. And the audience would be full of people that would be waiting for it, and then there'd be the hush in the group as the lights came down and we started a show. But under the age of COVID, things are a little bit different. So as you may have known, Broadway is closed currently, and different theaters throughout the country and throughout the world are all working to understand how to do our art in this time of COVID-19. Well, at Alvernia, we made a decision that we would do something. We weren't quite sure what. And so over the course of the summer and through the fall, we've been working with our students, working to identify pieces of material that we thought might be somewhat different than what we would normally be doing, rather than doing a musical like Oklahoma or doing a Shakespeare play like Romeo and Juliet. This gives us a chance to explore different kinds of material in a different kind of format. So this evening is called #Matter, and the whole evening is named that after our first piece, which is named #Matter, the title of a play by Idris Goodwin. Then we're going to see a piece of video art by one of our alums, Chelsea Gonzalez, who is an occupational therapist. And that will be, then we'll finish up with the third piece by Ana Fernandez Cruz. And so these pieces together focus on things that matter. And we hope that over the course of the evening you will enjoy it, that we will provoke you to think about some different things in new ways and ask questions, which is what we do in the theater. Tomorrow night, in this same time and space, we'll see dance. The Alvernia Dance Company, as well as community dancers, will be seen. And then on Friday night, we have comedy night. And Saturday night, we finish up this weekend with a group of scenes and monologues. And so each night at 7 o'clock, we hope you join us here on YouTube to see what Alvernia students are doing. And with that, I thank you for joining us this evening, and please, #Matter. Just be still for a second.
Prologue. We lived next door to each other as kids.
And now the same city.
We were never that close during any of it, but we knew each other.
I'd see him here and there.
We were aware of one another.
We kept our space, not consciously. We just ran in different spaces.
But we were always aware. Social war.
Another body, another name, another image has circulated. The latest body name, the newest image to haunt.
It's shameful.
I posted, "This is no time for apathy.
I liked it.
The fight for equality continues on."
Liked it.
And then I typed a hashtag in 3 words. Words I thought anyone could get behind.
I didn't quite like that. I responded with a hashtag in 3 words. Nothing offensive. Words I thought anyone can get behind.
I didn't quite like it, so I deleted it.
She deleted my response. Totally hypocritical.
My wall, my space. And yeah, I edited it. It's the one space where I can build the world I'd like to inhabit.
I respond to her posts a lot. We share the same algorithm, politically.
My response was to remove it.
Erasure is never okay. So I responded, this is not a race issue, not really. This is about abuse of power.
I responded, are you crazy?
I responded, we're talking about equality, the human experience. No time for stark divisions along racial lines. This is a time for us to recognize our shared humanity.
I deleted it.
I messaged her.
He messaged me.
We haven't seen each other in a while or spoken. The last time was at a concert. She was a little mad at me because the MC performed a song with the N-word in the chorus, and she saw me sing along. And she never said anything, but after the show, she was cold to me.
He messaged me.
Hey, Kim, I know it's been a while.
He felt like we needed to talk, needed to clear the air.
Can we sit down for coffee sometime? Sitting down.
I want to ask you what you meant, but I'm finding it hard to ask you. What I would rather do is just tell you what I think. What I think about what I thought you meant.
I can explain what I meant.
I'm sure you can. But can you explain what I read and what I took it to mean?
I just meant that we are all comprised of matter. Matter being the essential molecule element of which we are all built. Ordinary matter, like trees and water, solids and liquids.
But sounds, the voice, for example, was not always considered matter. Matter used to only encompass a select set of solid objects.
But all along, it was all matter.
What happens to matter split? Does it explode and decimate millions of bodies of color? And whose hands split that matter? What we're talking about are Black lives split, shaken until they become bombs.
Their lives, those lives, it's all ridiculous. We're here, and we can decide how this is going to go. This doesn't have to, shouldn't be, and we, us, we don't have to ascribe. And aside, there was that one summer after senior year of high school. We were both short on credits. All our friends took off. We had to stick around. We both ended up getting jobs to make extra cash. We kind of got close that summer. We talked about books, smoked joints on lunch breaks. That was the summer I got into R&B, and I turned her on to some indie rock. I thought, man, what a cool chick. There was that one night after our shift. We got tall cans, and we decided to break into the school. We heard someone. So we ducked into the only open room we could find, the chemistry room. It was dark in there, and we were super quiet. We drank more and started to get close. Maybe it was because things were coming to an end. We got close to, but we didn't. She stopped all of a sudden. Said she had to go home. We are on the same side, Kim.
Are we?
Yes, we want the same thing.
After another man is laying in the street, your immediate impulse is to correct me, to talk semantics with me, to say, well, actually, Kim, I don't know what side that is. An aside. In particle physics, antimatter is material composed of antiparticles, which have the same mass as particles of ordinary matter but have an opposite charge.
I don't think anyone is less or more or special.
When we say Black Lives Matter, do you think that's us saying we're special? Look at us. We're getting shot.
No, but it's sort of making your suffering worse than others. Wait, that is not what I mean.
What did you?
It's saying your suffering is, I mean, what about in Africa? All the Boko Haram stuff, or women all over the world being assaulted,
Okay, but
or
we're
gays or lesbians, Hispanics being deported, shot at border crossings, or hell, even poor white folks in Black communities who are bullied by the crimes of others. And I'm all for civil rights, but looting, property, just rage, it doesn't make sense. It's not strategic. All lives, Kim. That's what I'm saying. Let's pull the act from the context of race. We have to break this down to the root. Human wickedness.
And sometimes humans kill humans because of their race.
Wouldn't it be great if... I just wish we could move on. Be ourselves. Be individuals. Our own perfect stars. Just be our own perfect stars. When we were kids, when we would have block parties, all the kids in the neighborhood would be out. Getting our faces painted like Spider-Man, bike races. We were just kids in the neighborhood. When did we start?
I was the only Black kid at that block party.
I didn't see it like that.
You didn't see I was Black?
I didn't treat you different.
But not everybody was like you.
And aside, she wasn't always like this.
And aside, I was silent. I used to be silent.
She used to be real easygoing, a cool chick.
I used to hold my breath. Breathe shallow, up here in my chest.
We grew up the same way.
But the way we are perceived is different.
But that doesn't mean those perceptions are true.
The water and the tree in the same forest, but they're not the same. Different mass, different volume, different uses. Are you willing to decrease your mass? Just say it. Black Lives Matter.
Do white lives not matter?
Nobody is saying what doesn't matter.
But it's exclusionary.
It's contextual. In this climate, it relates to the splitting of Black atoms with no consequence.
And aside, I really want to leave. I feel sick. I want to hug Kim and tell her I'm sorry. But also, if I'm being honest, tell her to get over it. Life is hard and there is no measuring stick for suffering. She can change this just by being herself, not this angry Black woman.
And aside, I really want to let Cole off the hook and drop this whole thing, tell him it's all good. But I have swallowed myself so many times to make white folks feel less comfortable.
I just want to fix it.
Cole wants to know how we can fix it. Wants me to tell him, but I just woke up this way. I don't know how to dig into the hearts, rewire the country. I mean, who does? All I'm trying to do is keep it together.
I want to tell her I'm sorry.
I don't need apologies. I just want it to stop.
To say it is to say that my life, in someone's eyes, People living, people dead have mattered more than others. And I don't think it does, but someone at some point has to. And maybe my life is better because of it.
That night in the chemistry room, when we got close, Cole and I, all those years ago, I was into it. I liked him. Until he put his hands in my hair. I thought about all those kids in school always asking to touch it. Can I touch it? And how they'd react when they did. And he had his hands in my hair, and I wondered how he thought it felt. Weird? Funny? Good? Then I thought about if he'd been with any black girls before, and it was too much, so I told him I had to go home, so I did. I left. And that was the closest we'd ever got.
A week or two later, I sent him a message. I thanked her for our conversation. I told her we should be in touch more often, that I wanted to keep talking, not just about this, but our lives in general. Nothing. That was that, I thought. But one morning, I went on my timeline. I saw her name and her picture being shared by everyone. They called it a failure to comply, a failure to be silent. So she was made silent forever. She lives on now as a hashtag, but I can still hear her voice hanging in the particles. Does a spirit have mass? It must. I can feel the weight.
Racism. Let's get into it. So, I am Black, growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, predominantly white, raised by a single mom. Where to start? One of the biggest things I experienced was people's opinions on the way I spoke. A lot of people love to say I would talk white, try to be white girl trapped in a black girl's body. When kids used to tease me with that, my mom used to tell me, Chelsea, you say to them that you are a product of your environment. And that line, even though it's true, that line did not fly. That was not a cool comeback line. I personally was never called the N-word. Nothing, no memory has come up of that. But what I have experienced is people making comments about people of color, and then they would say, no, not you. Not you. Of course not you, because we know you. We grew up with you. And I just remember just having an outer body experience. I didn't know what to say, but it's weird, you know, that people have this opinion on what people of color act like and be like. And it's funny because these kids are making this comment. It's the same age as me, like we're 12, 13, so on. And they're making these assumptions off of what? Stuff that their parents say or what they see on television. And it's kind of scary. I actually remember this one time in school where this guy was trying to figure out who I liked. I was not going to tell him. He was not going to know. And he started naming black guys in my class. And I was like, well, why are you naming them? And he was like, well, you have to like them because they're black. And little did he know, I liked a white boy. I don't know. It just felt weird. So in college, I was getting ready to go on field work. And for my field work, I had to drop off some papers and get a photo ID. So I'm waiting in the room, me and this other girl, and she was white. And the lady finally comes out, and she walks directly up to the girl and goes, Chelsea, time to come back. And I was like, actually, I'm Chelsea. And she was like, oh. And she goes, oh, well, you can come back now. And even though it sounds so small, but it's like, why did she walk up to that girl? Like, there's two people in the waiting room and just walked all the way over to that girl. And turns out that girl was just waiting for someone. So she just made the assumption that I wasn't the student who was going on field work. And I did. I asked her, I said, why didn't you think I was Chelsea? And she goes, oh, and she gave me some type of BS answer. I don't even know what she said, but it was uncomfortable. So with that being said, field work, I'm an occupational therapist. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I don't think about when I walk into a patient's room, I hope they're okay with me being black. That's crazy, right? To think that, you know, that having older people of a different generation that I wonder if they're okay, that somebody who's there to help them would have a problem with my skin tone. But I do have those thoughts. And it has come up. I've had people be like, oh, so did you go to college for this? And it's like, yeah, I did. You know what I mean? I've had people ask me that, and then they want to know where I went to college. And people would ask me, am I the first one of my family to go to college? And my other friends who weren't black didn't get asked those questions. They don't have to worry about, they don't have that thought that when they go see a patient, if they're worried about their color of their skin. So I moved to New York, pursuing my dreams, and a thing that I would keep stumbling upon is casting directors telling me to be more urban. And honestly, when I first got hit with that, I had no idea what they meant. Urban. I just kind of was like, okay. And all I did was just say it more with attitude. And it wasn't until a friend of mine who's black pulled me aside and said, you know what they're asking you to be? I honestly had no idea. And she says, they're asking you to be more black. I was shook. Like, I really was shook. Like, I didn't think that was like the quote unquote nice way to ask that. But I couldn't believe that was what I was being asked of. But it's funny, the things that you encounter. I have a friend, she's from Texas, and she's like, can I ask you a question? And she goes, I don't want you to think I'm racist. So I was like, oh Lord, I had to brace myself for what she was about to ask me. And she said, why do black people have a smell? And I was like, what? And she's like, black people have a smell. And I'm like, okay, do I guess I'm smelling like that? And she told me, yeah, you do. And she was like, is there something like different you guys have on your insides? And I was shook. I was like, girl, we are in our late 20s. You were college educated. I'm college educated. What do you mean? Like, no science class has said that we are different. Like, all right, well, what do I smell like? And it's funny because what she smelt was cocoa butter. So I guess a lot of black people like to use cocoa butter. We like to stay moisturized. But that's what she was smelling. And I don't know, maybe it is a black people thing. I mean, I have seen black people use cocoa butter. You know, it does wonders to the skin. If you got stretch marks, use it for that. It's moisturized, softens the skin. I mean, maybe when people say black don't crack, I mean, it's probably because we moisturize, and black people have a tendency to use cocoa butter, the beans, you know, all that stuff. And I just remember laughing, like, girl, you just were around people who use similar products. It's crazy to me how quickly people can change the conversation when they don't want to talk about something. Again, you know, focusing on the looting, focusing on the law and order. And of course, you know, you want the country to function, you know, and chaos and violence is, you know, not, of course, that's not what anybody wants. However, the root of the problem is what everybody's ignoring. A lot of people are ignoring. But getting people to understand white privilege, you know, that if things were equal and everybody was treated equal, we wouldn't need hashtags like Black Lives Matter. I don't know how else to say it. Thank you for getting ready with me as I share experiences that I've had, you know, and thoughts. I think that we just have to keep trying and never give up, you know, and keep pushing the love and tolerance and education, you know. Yeah.
Think about it. You better think about what's trying to do to me. Yeah. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Let's go back, let's go way on back. I didn't even know you.
Secret, how sweet the sound.
I'm a white man. I know. Look, Shakespeare had a young man act the role of a young woman, pretending to be a young man in the Forest of Arden. That's how theater works. I could write some academic thing that would never see the light of day. I'm a theater person, so I make theater. And in theater, we get to break the rules a little. So I'm a white man. Playwrights, am I right? About 5 years ago, a young man walked into Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston. He sat with a group of members and pastors in a Bible study. After the study, the man took out a gun and shot and killed 9 people. 5 others survived the event. The victims were Clementa C. Pickney, Cynthia Marie Graham Hurd, Susie Jackson, Ethel Lee Lance, DePayne Middleton Doctor, Tywanza Sanders, Daniel L. Simmons, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, and Myra Thompson. The youngest was 26 years old. The oldest was a choir member, Susie Jackson. She was 87, 6 women, 3 men. The shooter reportedly said, "I have to do it. You rape our women, and you're taking over our country, and you have to go." I suppose I first learned about race when I was about 6 years old in Lorna Baldner's first grade class in Dallas Center, Iowa. One of the many great women teachers I've had in my life. For those of you who didn't go to elementary school in the 1960s, the eye color exercise was a day-long exercise in which brown-eyed kids got privileges in the morning simply because they had brown eyes. Blue-eyed kids were discriminated against for having blue eyes. In the afternoon, it was reversed. The 1960s were wild, even for first graders. The point in the late 1960s was to teach white kids like me about what it feels like to be the object of discrimination for nothing more than color. In this instance, eye color. I could go on to talk about how I teach about the history of racism in entertainment, the parallel biographies of T.D. Daddy Rice and the talented Ira Aldridge, the Pekin Theatre, and the commodification of African American culture by white producers and impresarios. Or I could talk about how a few years ago, I was a faculty officer at my university. At graduation, I considered taking a knee during the national anthem, but I decided to go against it because I didn't want to take the story away from the young folks graduating. This is nothing more than hubris and bravado. It is emptiness and chasing after the wind. When it comes to race, I know nothing. Oh, boo-hoo, I learned how to feel bad in an afternoon in first grade. That's not learning what it means to be a person of color in our culture. Big effing whoop. I never had to live while being black. Essentially, I come from a small town, country people from another era. I don't think I've ever said anything as cringeworthy as what I've heard some of the adults say when I was a kid, and I hope that my friends, colleagues, and students know that my heart's in the right place. But I'm pretty sure I've said and done some hurtful, racist things without malicious intent. My lack of bad intent doesn't make those words or actions any less hurtful. I've said that no one needed a lecture from an old white guy on race. I still think that's mostly true. I've done a lot of listening and reading. I'm not speaking from a place of aggrievement. I'm as white as the day is long. Nor do I feel some form of liberal self-hatred, whatever that may be. I don't feel hatred toward me nor to anyone else. I do have some questions and some thoughts. I have some questions to the rest of the white folk. My question is, why this time? And that should be the question for us white folk. After all, there have been plenty of black folk killed for similar situations. Was it the video? We had to see it. We had to see it while hearing Mr. Floyd still call his murderer, "Sir?" What if there had been no video at all? Would we have gotten as exercised? What does that mean then about all the other times over the previous decades when black folk got killed and little or nothing happened? Their death didn't mean as much because we couldn't see it? What, we just couldn't believe it? I hear and read all the time from some of my white friends about their rights. This right and that right in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. As far as I can make out, Mr. Floyd and most, all of his predecessors in like situations were deprived of their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendment rights. The 4th, the right of the people to be secure in their person. The 5th, not to be deprived of life without due process of law. The 6th, the right to trial. The 8th, the stricture against cruel and unusual punishment. Was Mr. Floyd allowed to be secure in his person? Where was his due process of law? Do police get to be judge and executioner all wrapped up in one package? Where was Mr. Floyd's trial? I think he passed a funny boat. If I had done that, they would have caught up with me and it turned into that funny story I tell at Memorial Day barbecue while having a beer. Oops, stupid me, I guess I picked up a bad 20 somewhere, I just didn't notice. The cop showed it to me and worked it out, haha. Why are people so concerned with their First and Second Amendment rights, but have, as far as I can make out, so little concern for Mr. Floyd's and others' rights? I've listened in on forums and conversations about race. A forum is sure to always have nice words about the importance of diversity. A bunch of white people talking about the importance of diversity and what we do for diversity and programming for diversity. Maybe not all of us are in the 1%, but probably at least like good milk, 2%. We never talk about white privilege. Uh-oh, I said it. I've read and heard what people say about this movement in these times. Black Lives Matter isn't the perfect messenger. In the end, it'll all be about money. These are good white people who don't see race and don't see racism where they are. We just don't have racism where I am. I've had to work hard for what I have. What privilege? I'm glad that these good people evidently live in a good world completely without the taint of race. And it's good that all of that is all in the past. I don't happen to live in that world of purity. Racism, however we define it, has come to be its own witch's brew of concepts and ideas. We all know it's bad, so we don't want to be caught out being racist. And by the way, what about reverse racism? Isn't that just as bad? By the way, no, it's not. As humans, we get caught up in systems that we don't think about. We live within those systems. Let's say you're white and live in a neighborhood. Imagine that if one black family moves into your white block, immediately neither you nor any potential buyer would have access to a mortgage on that house. Making it up? Nope. Beryl Satters outlines this very situation in the book, Family Properties. I don't know if the white people in those blocks were racist or not. Probably not in the way we normally think about it, but they were co-opted into the racist system, and for whatever reason, it wasn't important enough for them to fight the system, but simply to play along. Some folks want to make this about class and not race. And we have class problems too. I've been poor. I've literally lived on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. I've lived in the bad neighborhood. I can tell you that folks in the colored part of town do get treated differently than they do on the other side of the tracks. But even at that, I always had it easier than any black man. One of my messages has been everything is all connected. It is, it always is. Reforming police policy is probably good, but we need to be thorough in rooting it out. Racism in our culture, our society, and our nation. Racism does nothing positive for us. We have to deal with the legacy of housing and geographic segregation. The black part of town, we have to deal with the history of denying credit based solely on race and not the ability to repay the loans. Those twin problems are tied intimately to schools and school systems. We need to work out a million challenges in our education system. One simple matter would be paying our teachers appropriately. Teachers' pay is often tied to housing and geography. We need to work out better funding systems for education. The list goes on and on. One of the main things we white folks could do is get over ourselves. As a white man, I can't give lectures about race. What I can do is urge us white people to have some frank conversations about white privilege. The forums about the need for diversity are all well and good, sure, but someday it'd help if we also talked about the unspoken too. I didn't write this to get any attaboys or even a mea culpa. I didn't want my quiet to be ever interpreted as some sort of support for the status quo. How does this end? It doesn't end. Not quite. Plays end because plays have to end. But dealing with race and white privilege will go on after this play ends. We're going to play the national anthem now. Will you sit while you listen? Will you stand? Will you take a knee?